Welcome to the Private School Leader Podcast, where private school leaders learn how to thrive and not just survive as they serve and lead their schools. I strongly believe that it is possible to have a long and happy and fulfilling career as a private school leader. And my passion is to help you figure out exactly how to do just that right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And I'm your host, Mark Minkus. So I want to start today's episode with a question. Have you ever had one of those days where you leave school, you're completely exhausted, and yet somehow you're also wondering if you did enough? So you're exhausted, but you're still thinking about school and did I do enough? Did I give enough? Did I work hard enough? You know, you solved problems all day and you answered emails and handled parent concerns, and you dealt with that misbehaving seventh grader, and you stopped in and checked on a teacher, and you had meetings, and you made decisions, and you put out fires, and you had your day controlled by the tyranny of the urgent, and you just were on the go all day long. But then you get in your car and your brain starts doing this thing that my brain sometimes likes to do, and I think a lot of private school leaders' brains like to do, and it's that you start replaying everything that you didn't do that day or that you could have done better. And you think, well, I should have handled that conversation better. And you think, well, oh man, I forgot to respond to that email, or I didn't get back to that parent, or here's a big one, I didn't get into enough classrooms today. I'm so far behind. And even though you worked really, really hard and you're exhausted, you're carrying around this heavy feeling, this heavy load, this between the ears and in the heart kind of weight that you're not doing enough, and maybe you're not doing it well enough. And I think a lot of private school leaders feel this way. I used to feel this way at the end of a day, not every day, but a lot of days. And I think that from time to time that we need some reminders, some simple reminders that will make us pause and think and ground us in what's true and not only in what we feel or how we feel when we're walking to our car. And so I want to give you 4 reminders today. And honestly, I don't know if we realize how badly we need to hear these reminders. And so on today's episode of the Private School Leader Podcast, I'm going to give you the 4 reminders you didn't know you needed today. And I like to give you a free gift every episode just to say thank you for listening. And today's free gift is called The Top 6 Ways to Protect Your School from a Lawsuit. And this is a 10-page PDF that will help you keep your staff and students safe and help keep your school out of court. Litigation is expensive, time-consuming, and very, very stressful. And so I created this common sense guide to give you more intentional and proactive ways to protect your school. So if you go to theprivateschoolleader.com/lawsuit, you can grab the free PDF, The Top 6 Ways to Protect Your School from a Lawsuit. Again, that's at theprivateschoolleader.com/lawsuit. And then one more quick question. Do you want to run it back next year exactly like this year? So I want you to think back on this school year. And when you think about the 26-27 school year in the fall, do you want next year to be exactly the same? In other words, are you happy with how things went and how things felt at school this year? Are you happy with how things went and how things felt at home this school year? And if the answer is yes, great, then I'm not talking to you. But usually the answer is more like, well, here's where I want things to be different this next year. Here's where I want to do better this fall. And here's the thing. I can help you make it better. I can help you get what you want. I'd love to work with you one-on-one this summer. I have some summer leadership spots that are open, some summer leadership coaching spots. And, you know, I have a lot of coaching clients, but in the summertime, that's when folks are reflecting on the school year and they're determined that they want this thing, or this thing to be better. And I would love to work with you this summer. And the 26-27 school year could be completely different for you at school and at home. And I don't expect you to take my word for it. If you go to theprivateschoolleader.com/coaching, you can read testimonials from over 24 coaching clients. And then if you want those kind of results, just email me, mark.o.minkus@gmail.com, and we'll jump on a 20-minute Zoom call and we'll just talk. So if you're interested, if you'd like to know more, privateschoolleader.com/coaching, or shoot me an email at mark.o.minkus@gmail.com. So I told you that on today's episode, I'm going to give you 4 reminders you didn't know you needed today. So let's just jump right in. Reminder number 1, you have an incredibly complex and exhausting job. Reminder number 1, you have an incredibly complex and exhausting job. Now you might be like, yeah, tell me something I don't know. Here's the thing. I'm going to tell you 4 things that you already know. That's why they're called reminders. I'm not teaching you new stuff, okay? But we just go to school and we put our head down and we work and we work and we work. And then we bring work home and we run it back. And then we do the impossible and it becomes part of our job description. And then that's just our life and that's just our job. And so what I'm trying to get you to do today with these 4 reminders is to just pause and think and then apply that to you. Okay? So you have an incredibly complex and exhausting job. And I think that one of the reasons that private school leaders get so emotionally depleted and feel overwhelmed or can feel discouraged is because we just normalize how difficult our job actually is. Okay, I want you to hear that again. I think part of the problem is that we just normalize how difficult our job actually is. Because you're doing emotional and complex work all day long. And think about how complex it is, how many stakeholders you have: parents, teachers, students, board members, alumni, coaches, graduates, donors, people in the community. Those are the stakeholders. And then think about all the issues that you dealt with probably just today: enrollment, student discipline, the budget for next year, the school culture and teacher morale and student safety and conflict resolution and gossip and following through on expectations and emotional parent problems and all of those things. That could be Tuesday by lunchtime, what I just said, at your school. All of those stakeholders, their needs intersect at your desk. All of those issues that I just mentioned. And I didn't even mention the leaky roof or the 3 teachers that called off sick this morning. That all intersects at your desk. And here's the thing. You talk about an emotional roller coaster. You talk about switching between tasks and juggling multiple priorities. I said this could all happen before lunch on a Tuesday. Listen to this. This could all happen before lunch on Wednesday. You talk to a crying student and make them feel better, help them feel better. And then you go to a meeting and you're discussing retention numbers. And then you're handling 2 teachers that can't get along. And then you're responding to an upset parent email and you jump on the phone with them and you're getting your board presentation ready because tomorrow is the board meeting. This is not normal work. And yet I believe that we normalize and we minimize the emotional impact and the cognitive load and the decision fatigue. And then we're just like, well, it's fine, I'm just tired. Or it's busy. Or it is what it is. Or, well, that's just the job. And I get it. If a parent asks you how it's going, or if a board member asks you, how are you doing? You're not going to be like, actually, I'm exhausted, overwhelmed, and burnt out, and I want to quit. You're not going to say that to them. But the work of a private school leader is uniquely emotional because I think the work is so uniquely and deeply personal. It's so emotional because of how personal it is. Parents are emotional because they love their kids and they have hopes and fears about their children. And so parents are emotional. Teachers are emotional because they care about the kids and they care about their job and they care about their psychological safety. And are the parents being too mean to them, and are they getting along with this other teacher, and so forth. And teachers have hopes and fears about their work and their career. And then students can be emotional because they're kids, and kids are supposed to be emotional. And board members sometimes are emotional because they're responsible for the school and for supervising you. And let's face it, sometimes board members don't know their role, and they have little pet projects or little pet things, and they get emotional. And so I just named parents, teachers, students, board members. I'm not saying they're all emotional all the time. I'm just saying that this is emotional work that we do. And most of us are high in emotional intelligence, high in empathy. And when that happens, we go through the day and we absorb all that emotion around us. And it's exhausting and it's overwhelming. And it is possible that we're headed towards burnout. And you're carrying a tremendous responsibility to keep everybody safe and to keep everything running smoothly and to figure out how you're going to fix enrollment and to figure out how you're going to find that middle school science teacher and that high school math teacher. And you're trying to figure out all these things. What you do is very, very difficult, very, very complex. And it's okay that it feels hard because it is hard. It's okay that your job feels hard because it is hard. There's nothing wrong with you. You're fine. You're doing a great job. But if at the end of the day, the way you feel is overwhelmed, exhausted, and I didn't get anything done today, sometimes feelings become our reality. And so that's why I wanted to give you this big reminder that you have an incredibly complex and exhausting job. Okay? Reminder number 2 is what you do matters. What you do matters. You know, sometimes I used to feel like I was invisible. You know, that I was working really hard as a private school leader, either as a head of school or as a division head. And it's like I would spend all day solving problems and nobody noticed. And they didn't notice because my leadership helped to avoid that crisis and it didn't even happen. Or because of my proactive communication, things are running smoothly. And so nobody notices, and nobody notices when I stress out and have this great parent meeting and it goes really well. Or when you have a really complex student situation and you investigate and you solve it and you come up with a consequence and you communicate it and you handle it really well, and nobody notices. And you handle the impossible. Whatever that is, fill in the blank. It's a facility thing. It's a coverage thing. It's an enrollment thing. It's a budget thing. It's a student thing. You do the impossible, and then it feels like nobody notices. I've been there. You've been there. But reminder number 2 is what you do matters. Because it matters to the student who feels psychologically safe at your school and physically safe. They don't know why they feel that way. They don't know the connection between why they feel that way and your hard work, but it matters. And a teacher who stayed and didn't go to that other school because they felt supported by you and backed up by you, that matters. And a parent who has peace of mind when they send their kid off to your school because they trust your school is going to do a good job, that matters. And then think of that kid. We all have the kid who in 4th grade, they cried every day. And in 8th grade, they're the lead in the musical and president of student council. And the environment in your school, the culture in your school, the supportive culture in your school help that child grow in their confidence. And they're one of your success stories. You get a front row seat for those transformations. Those transformations matter. What you do matters. You're shaping people's lives. It sounds dramatic, but it is so true. There are kids, there are adults walking around today, and they are healthier adults, psychologically safe, maybe their mental health, their emotional strength, their resilience is better because of the environment and culture you created at your school when they attended your school. There are teachers, maybe they're not at your school anymore, maybe they are, but they're still in education years after they thought of getting out because you had their back and you supported them and you poured yourself into that teacher. And there are families who were scared and broken and anxious when they came to your school, and their kid was one of your success stories, and that family was healed, and they found structure, and they found stability, and they found belonging, and they found teachers who understood their kid, and that matters. But that kind of impact is difficult to measure. You know what's easy to measure? Enrollment. What's that 3-digit number that's tattooed on the inside of your eyelids every time you close your eyes? You know what else is easy to measure? The budget. Or how many unfilled positions do we have? Or what's easy to measure is, what was our fundraising amount this year? There are numbers that are easy to measure. Impact from your servant leadership is difficult to measure. And how do you measure psychological safety? How do you measure culture? How do you measure how much resilience that kids developed, or how much trust you built with teachers, or how much more confident that first-year teacher is on their last day than it on their first day of school? Like, that's really difficult to measure, but there's all kinds of stuff around us that is really easy to measure. And those are the things that get the attention, and those are the things that make us feel crappy. And yeah, we've had those times where maybe we get that email from a parent on graduation day, or a teacher tells you something that they really appreciate about you. But let's face it, like, that's very few and very far between, and it's like an oasis in the middle of the biggest desert on earth, it feels like. But if you're feeling discouraged, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you feel like you're invisible and you feel like nobody notices, I want to be the one to remind you today that what you do matters. It matters on the days that you feel invisible. It matters on the days where you give your all. What you do matters. So I'm giving you the 4 reminders you didn't know you needed today. And number 1 is you have an incredibly complex and exhausting job. Number 2, what you do matters. And reminder number 3, you are doing your best. You're doing your best. I think a lot of private school leaders have these unrealistic expectations for themselves. I know that I always did. I expected myself, I'm going to always say the right thing, and I'm going to always be calm and cool and collected, and I'm always going to make the right decision, and I'm always going to find an elegant solution to a complex problem, and I'm always going to show up with energy and optimism and patience and empathy, and I'm always going to be visible, and I'm always going to be available to everybody, and I'm always going to know what to do in every single situation, and so on and so on and so on. Well, it sounds like I just described like a robot that's programmed to like not make any mistakes. You are a human being. Last time I checked, you don't get plugged in on a charging station at night. And then you have all these algorithms and all of these calculations and all of these things going on, and that you get it right all the time, every time. And you show up the way you want to show up all the time, every time. Because when we're leading, we're doing it when we're tired and stressed out, and when we're emotional, when we're dealing with our own stuff. We all have our own stuff outside of school. I've got a bunch of coaching clients who have elderly parents who are really, really not doing well. Okay? I have one client, she has two parents who are in two different care facilities because their needs are so different that they couldn't be met in the same facility, right? And then on the other end of things, I've got coaching clients who have, kids that are 2, 4, and 6 years old. And they're a rising head of school in the fall. And they're trying to get off to a good start and figure things out and still show up and not feel guilty at home. Maybe you either became empty nesters this past year or are about to become an empty nester this fall. And that's hard. That house is quiet. We all have our stuff that we're dealing with. But we all have our stuff. But you know what we do? We keep showing up. We keep showing up. And here's the thing. I said this reminder is that you're doing your best. You are operating, you're giving your all with the resources and the energy and the facts and the emotional capacity that you have today. That capacity might be different tomorrow. It might have been different 4 days ago, but whatever your capacity in those areas is on that day, and you just do your best with what you have, you're doing your best. And your best is good enough. Some days your best looks different. Some days I would crush it and I would feel like a visionary leader, an organized person who didn't let the tyranny of the urgent control my day, and I had some inspirational conversations with a donor, and I went and checked on some teachers, and I was visible, and all of those things, and I was just crushing it. Okay. That felt great, but that isn't the reality every day. Here's the thing. Sometimes, if what we accomplished today is that everybody survived the day, and everybody was safe, and the lights were on, that is a huge win. That is not you lowering your expectations. That is not you being a slacker and being lazy and just, it's not. Your best looks different on different days. And I think that exhausted leaders are way too harsh towards themselves. I know that's true because my coaching clients, it's like, the expectations are just unrealistic. And then when we don't meet those unrealistic goals, the self-talk is lousy. It's terrible. And I want you to think about this, okay? I want to give you a scenario to make my point. You have a second grade teacher. She's in her first year, and it's October, okay? You're 2 months into the school year. And this teacher, she's struggling with her classroom management. She has a good attitude. She's eager. She's a hard worker, but she's struggling with her classroom management. You're going to go and sit down and have a conversation with her. I want you to think about how you would handle that conversation. You're going to show grace. You're going to be supportive. You're going to point out the things that she's doing well. You're going to give her the support that she needs. You're going to make some suggestions and give her some strategies. Maybe have her observe another lower school teacher who's really good at classroom management, and then you're going to check back in with her in a week or two, right? That's what we're all going to do. But the amount of grace that you give her in that conversation, that second grade, first year teacher who's struggling with classroom discipline, the amount of grace that you give her, it would be extremely rare for a private school leader to give themselves the same grace. I think you're doing better than you think you are. And I just want to be the one to remind you that you're doing just fine. You're doing a really good job. You're doing a really good job. You're doing your best. And then finally, reminder number 4 is there is no such thing as a perfect leader. And I think this is so huge because we have such high expectations for ourselves. I've mentioned that a few times. I think that sometimes we're chasing a version of ourselves that doesn't exist. We're chasing this idealized version of like this perfect leader. And maybe maybe your predecessor who you followed was like this iconic, amazing leader with a great reputation, and you're chasing that reputation. Or maybe you compare yourself to fill in the blank. I don't know. We tend to, comparison is the thief of joy. And even if we have a nice home with a nice yard and we have healthy kids and we have enough money to pay our bills, we can still go on Instagram and feel like crap when we compare ourselves to other people who have a nicer house and go on nicer vacations and eat at nicer places. And we're always going to come up short when we compare ourselves. But what is this thing that we're chasing that is this unrealistic version of a perfect leader that is always visible and never gets overwhelmed and never makes a bad decision, and this leader that never drops the ball and never forgets anything and never disappoints anybody and crushes it at school and crushes it at home and always knows what to do no matter what the situation? And who is this person? I haven't met her. I haven't met him, because the perfect leader doesn't exist. Because every strong leader that you admire, whether it's someone in world history or American history or in the Bible or in the world of independent school education or whoever, you don't know their struggles. You don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Because every single leader messes up and misses things and has bad days and has imposter syndrome and feels insecure and gets tired and handles some situations great and completely fumbles the ball at the 1-yard line on other stuff. That's called being a leader, right? And here's the thing. Your teachers and your students and your parents, they don't need you to be a perfect leader. They just need you to keep showing up. They need you to keep working hard, keep showing up, keep being authentically yourself, lead with integrity, with humility, and just care, right? And you do, or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. And so get off of this idea that perfection is the goal. You know what the goal is? Good mental health. The goal is a sustainable, doable job. Okay? The goal is good physical health. The goal is a good relationship with your spouse or partner. The goal is a good relationship with your kids. Because if you have those things, if you've got mental health and physical health and good relationships at home, you are going to be much more likely to feel like you're doing your best at school. So excellence isn't the goal. Being physically and mentally healthy and wanting to do this for a long time, doing the best that you can and just keep showing up and just keep serving and being kinder to yourself, that's the goal. So the 4 reminders you didn't know you needed today. Reminder number 1, you have an incredibly complex and exhausting job. Reminder number 2, what you do matters. Matters to a lot of people. You might feel invisible, but what you do matters. Reminder number 3, you are doing your best. And reminder number 4, there is no such thing as a perfect leader. So your call to action for today's episode is to pick one reminder, think about it for 5 or 10 minutes, and then just apply it to how you feel at work and at home. And so just a quick reminder, you can grab the free PDF called The Top 6 Ways to Protect Your School from a Lawsuit by going to theprivateschoolleader.com/lawsuit. That's free for you. And another reminder is that I've got summer coaching spots opening up. I'd love to help you make the 26-27 school year your best year ever. Just email me, mark.o.minkus@gmail.com. Check out testimonials at theprivateschoolleader.com/coaching. I would love to work with you. And I appreciate you. I am so, so grateful for the hard work that you do at your school. I appreciate you taking some of your precious time to join me here today. And I'll see you next time right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And until then, always remember to serve first, lead second, and make a difference.